Hi, I'm Caden here with my brother,
Cal,
and you're watching Eating W's.
eat the W.
That's a W. Let's eat one. Let's eat one. That's a W.
On today's episode of Eating W's, we have our NFL Week 12 prediction episode for the 2024 NFL season. But before we get rolling straight into that, just a quick update on Cal and I's head-to-head pick'em game. Just like last week with the news, or just like last episode, I should say, with the news not having been done for a while, we also haven't updated you guys on the points in our pick'em game for a while. So long, in fact, that I can't even really remember where we left off or exactly how many points those gaps were each week. So I'm just going to give it to you straight. The big total right now, we are at me with 115 and Callan with 110. So however that works, the math since our last time we talked about our scores, but I have a 15-point lead here this far into the season. It's probably the most confident I've ever felt at this point in the season because usually I'm already letting my lead slip, but this year I've turned it around. I've actually still been steadily increasing my lead, only by about a point, 2 points each week, but hey, if it's not negative, it's a positive. Like, come on, let's go. Let's just keep building that gap. So still far from over. Lots of weeks to come back. Lots of points to be had, especially once we get into the playoff side of things. But for now, I'm actually feeling half confident. So knock on all the wood I can. Don't let the floor fall out from under me, but I'm feeling good right now. Let's see if Callan can start closing that gap here in Week 12, starting with the Thursday night football game, with the Steelers heading to Cleveland to take on the Browns in an AFC North divisional matchup. And for the second week in a row, which is definitely the first time that's happened like ever, we disagree again on the Thursday night game. Callan has the Steelers, but I actually have the home team Browns, and I have them marked as my upset. So the Browns just seem to have the Steelers number. Ever since that wild card game where the Browns were the obvious underdog, and it was Baker Mayfield's like rookie or sophomore or maybe even third year in the league, and they actually ended up beating them in Pittsburgh to knock them out of the playoffs and move on past the wild card round. It seems like the Browns have just found ways to beat the Steelers. Even when the Steelers are still way favored in it, the Browns find a way. When the Browns are favored, they still continue to do what they should and pick up wins then. So I don't know. I don't even have a ton of backing or reasoning on this. It's just I think the Steelers haven't looked like a 7-2, 7-3 team, whatever they are exactly now. 7-3. They haven't really looked like a 7-3 team. They've been winning off of a stifling defense and pretty good special teams, and that just cracks sometimes, especially in these divisional games like this where there's so much pressure, there's so much added hype. You're going against guys like Jameis Winston, who's just the hype beast. So, I mean, how does he not get hyped for a huge divisional matchup like this? You show cracks when you kind of rely on those things and don't really have the offense to put up points. So will it actually happen? Probably not, but I see the Steelers start showing a couple of cracks in this game and the Browns taking advantage of that and just eking out a win at home.
Yeah, I see it going the other way. I like the Steelers in this one. Russell Wilson has been playing with a rejuvenation to his career, like making those Denver Broncos years looks like complete anomalies. So as far as that goes, I think that Russell Wilson continues to at least perform well enough to lead the Steelers to a victory here. The Browns have been one of the bigger disappointments in the NFL this year. Deshaun Watson was just a complete disaster and looks to be a complete disaster. I don't know if they can get out from under that contract. Jameis Winston, he's a nice story, and we celebrate when he does well, but I think he's just, when you come down to it, he's a backup quarterback.
When it comes down to reality, Jameis Winston's not as good as we'd like to hope or think he is.
Exactly.
But he is just the ultimate hype beast. You can't take that away from him.
So he does have that going for him. So he might be able to hype up the Browns to an upset here, but I don't see it happening. But that Steelers defense led by T.J. Watt, I expect them to get a number of sacks on the Browns, and Najee Harris and Jalen Warren are combining to be one of the top duos in the NFL for running backs. So because of that, I think the Steelers are able to walk away with this one pretty easily.
Yeah, Russell Wilson must just like struggle in altitude because the way he was so high in Seattle, so poor playing in Denver, and then now he's kind of picking it back up is like it's like a case study. It's so crazy how bad he was in Denver. But I regress. Moving on to the next game, we got the Minnesota Vikings in an NFC North matchup heading to Chicago to take on the Bears. And we both agree in this one, and we of course both have the Vikings. Now, the Bears got their, if I'm not mistaken, first shot at a divisional game last week against the Packers. And I will hand it to them. They stepped up. They played a lot better in that game than they had in pretty much any game this season, especially the week before when they went against the New England Patriots and absolutely crapped the bed. They looked like a whole different team compared from one week to the next going against the Packers. And to be honest, being in Chicago again, being another divisional opponent, I could see them really playing up to that level again. But I think that the Vikings are finally starting to right the ship. We had a couple of bad games against AFC South teams, but when you go against those out-of-conference teams, I mean, all the games are just kind of a toss-up. Really hard to judge anything with those because it's a little harder to get hyped up because they don't matter quite as much. It's a little harder to know your opponent because, of course, you only face them once every 4 years or so, or whatever your rotation is exactly. So there's just a lot of anomalies with out-of-conference games that I don't judge them near as harshly as in-conference games. And the Vikings had 2 in a row out-of-conference games. So that's really hard to judge anything there. Both wins, but both meh games. But now we finally move back in conference, and more than back in conference, back into the division. So I think that the team has been waiting for this. I think that they've been really hyped up and excited to get back to this sort of game and back to this sort of moment. So even with it being in Chicago, and even if the Bears play much better, which I do think they will, I think the Vikings are still able to sneak out a close win. Maybe not fingertips close like the Packers picked up a win against them, but at least a 1-score game.
Yeah, it's funny. I had the Bears actually originally picked here, and then I went back and changed it to the Vikings because I remembered how bad the Bears' offensive line is.
Yeah.
And that the Vikings are probably going to have double-digit sacks in this game. And because of that, I changed my pick to the Vikings because I expect them to be very dominant on defense this week. That Bears' offensive line is still just a complete patchwork. So I expect a lot of pressure from Brian Flores and exotic pressures from Brian Flores to really get into Caleb Williams' head and get him seeing ghosts. So we'll see how well that Brian Flores is able to control Caleb Williams. And if he is able to control him, I expect the Vikings to actually walk away with this one pretty easily, because if you can get Caleb Williams all upset and really get him kind of butthurt by beating him up and getting some sacks on him, then I think that you could put the Bears away early and expect the Vikings to walk away with this one.
Sam Darnold's over on the other sideline, like, another rookie seeing ghosts. Join the club, Caleb. Come on over.
If anyone's going to do it, it'll be Flores in that defense.
God, he's such a good defensive coordinator. I mean, we will. He's going to go get another job somewhere, but I would be fine if he just stayed our defensive coordinator forever, no doubt about it. So now jumping quite a bit down the list to our other NFC North game and passing the Colts upset that Callan predicted as a trap game. Just wanted to kind of point that out. But moving on to the game we're actually going to talk about, we have the San Francisco 49ers heading into Green Bay to take on the Packers. And we agree again here, and we both have the Packers in this one. I don't know what the weather's supposed to be like exactly, but this far into the year, it's going to be very cold in Green Bay. There's no doubt about it. You got a California team coming halfway across the nation to come into the frozen tundra. That right there is almost grounds enough to say that the Packers are going to pick up a win. But to stack on top of that, you got a hot team versus a cold team, not temperature-wise, but performance-wise right now. The 49ers have looked very meh recently. They're not by any means a dumpster fire or a laughing stock of the league, but they just haven't been playing what they should be playing like. There's a couple different things you could point out there. Different injuries, big one to McCaffrey, even though he's back, he's still kind of warming up because it's only his second game of the season last week, third game this week. But George Kittle was out last week and has been kind of dealing with the injury bug. but there's so many other factors in that offense and so much talent on that offense that they should just be playing better. And the Packers, ironically, are almost the exact opposite or exact flip side of the page. Because if you look at their offense, I mean, they don't really have the big names. They don't have the big stars like the 49ers do, but they've been performing just as well, if not leagues better on the offensive side of the ball. And their defense, though very bending, often don't break and are able to get big turnovers and big moments with guys like Xavier McKinney, who has like an interception a game, it seems like, anymore.
He's actually been on a bit of a cold streak.
Oh, well, he had like 5 or 6 interceptions to start the season.
He did have 6 to start the season. I mean, but he hasn't had one since he got 6.
Oh, poor guy. What will he ever do without getting an interception a game? But no, I think that there's just way too many factors stacked against the 49ers right now, and it would be a great prove-it game for them to go out and get a win and say, hey, we're still here. I don't think that happens in the Tundra.
No, I like the Packers in this one, and that's because of Jordan Love and his 80% wing it up there completion percentage. And because of that, I expect him to at least hit 2 or 3 of those this week, and at least one of them for a touchdown, maybe even another free play for a touchdown, where he's starting to emulate Aaron Rodgers. And maybe that's why I had a Freudian slip last time, is because he's starting to play like Aaron Rodgers in his prime. So when he can start getting those free plays on him, boy,
he plays a lot like Rodgers.
That reminds me of Rodgers so much.
He is the love child of Rodgers and Favre.
He is.
His play style is almost the dead middle. It's so insane.
It is, and it's working out perfectly for this Packers team right now. And because another reason that this team is going to win this Sunday is because of Josh Jacobs, who's quietly putting together another all-pro type season, being 3rd or 4th in the league with just shy of 1,000 yards. I think he might break 1,000 this week if he has another good game. So I think that Josh Jacobs is able to have at least 50 yards and another touchdown. And I really like his running style, that strong running style, and his falling forward. It's really been nice and a nice change of pace for this Packers team. And I also looked for this defense to force another couple turnovers, because if you can get Brock Purdy to throw at least 2 interceptions, I believe he is winless when he has 2 or more turnovers. So look for the Packers defense to force some turnovers, whether that's early or late in the game, and look for the Packers to walk away with this one by, I'd say 10, maybe 13 points.
That's a surprising stat, especially with the talent around him. I'm surprised that he's winless there. But no, I completely agree that it's going to be at least a high 1-possession, low 2-possession game. Yeah. So now moving on to our 2 primetime games, starting with an NFC matchup on Sunday Night Football. We have the Philadelphia Eagles heading to Los Angeles to take on the Rams, and we agree again. We both have the Rams in this one. I just think that when the 2 receivers are on the field, which you know who those 2 receivers are, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, when both of those guys are on the field, this Los Angeles Rams team is a different team. They are just so much better. It is just like a whole different player when it comes to Matthew Stafford, because he actually has the people around him. It's not like he's playing back in Detroit again when he had maybe one guy, if anybody, giving him any support at all. He's got 2 really good wide receivers, pretty damn good tight end in the middle there, and one of the most underrated and I think one of the best running backs in the league behind him with Kyren Williams, not to mention Blake Corum, who had a couple of big runs last week and kind of had a little bit of a coming out party for himself. But overall, this offense is just so good when everybody's healthy. And right now, if you look at it, everybody's healthy. Don't get me wrong, the Eagles are a very good team as well. And if I'm not mistaken, I think everybody is healthy for the Eagles right now as well. So they are definitely going to give the Rams a run for their money. There is no doubt about that. Saquon Barkley might just be inhuman. He's lab grown. Like, there's something unfair about him. I don't know what it is, but physically he is quite literally just different. He is not human. So he could be the driving force for kind of a upset here. I'm not sure exactly who's favored or unfavored in this one. But if the Rams or if the Eagles do find a way to win, I think it's on the back of Saquon Barkley. And if the Rams find a way to win, I think it is by a team effort. So I think that it's much more likely the Rams pick up a win at home.
Yeah, and I went back and forth on this one too, because this is going to be a really fun game to watch. But I think the Rams win this one at the end of the game. And I give them the edge because they're the home team this week, whereas Philly has to go across the country, even though it is a night game, so the body clock doesn't really matter. But nonetheless, I give the favor to the home team here. And I think that, like you said, the Rams are just a better and different team with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp both fully healthy. And when they're both fully healthy, they're able to put up dominant numbers. And both of them had, I believe, over 100 yards and at least a touchdown last week. And if you can get two wide receivers doing that, and that doesn't even count your running back numbers, I mean, look out, because that's putting up points like none other. And because of that, I think that the Rams are able to win this one, because I expect another hot streak from Kupp and Nacua. And like you said, look out for Kyren Williams to prove to be one of the kind of dark horse running back candidates for running back of the year this year, because he has put together a nice season, nearing 1,000 yards. I believe, if I remember right, he might be 5th or 6th in rushing yards. So he's right up there near the top of the total rushing yards this year. And I think that the Rams are able to put together a complete game and be a complete team win for this week's Sunday Night Football game.
Yeah, these are crazy primetime games. I was just kind of looking at it again, because moving from a really good NFC matchup to a really good AFC matchup for our Monday Night Football game, we have the Baltimore Ravens heading to Los Angeles to take on the Chargers. And we finish this week by agreeing. We both have the Ravens in this one. I think that the Ravens pick up a win here. I really do. I think that they had a down week last week, and they're going to come out and say, we don't know what happened last week, but it's not happening again. They're going to kind of use the Chargers as a punching bag, who are a little more of an upset team this year, definitely performing over what they should on paper, theoretically. So lots of reasons I think the Ravens win here. But I think this ends up being a really close game. I think the Chargers are on a hot streak right now. I think Justin Herbert is playing some of the best football he has since like his rookie year, 2020, 2021. There's really just a toss-up on this one, in my opinion. I really struggled to pick this game. I did. And usually when it's a total coin flip in my head like that, I go with the home team, which would be the Chargers in this situation. But just with how the Ravens got not much short of embarrassed last week in Pittsburgh against the Steelers and lost the way they did, I think that they come out with some fire under their ass and find a way to pick up a win. But give me another one-possession game in this one. I think it's a lot closer than you'd think.
Yeah, and it's the Harbaugh Bowl, where we got John and Jim Harbaugh going against each other, featured on Monday Night Football. But I like the Ravens in this one because NFL logic says when you play your worst game of the year the week before, the following week, you're going to play one of your best games of the year. And that's just how the Ravens are going to play. And like you said, the Chargers are kind of overachieving a little bit this year. Not to take anything away from them, but definitely not as many wins as we thought they were going to have so far this season. And with the Ravens, I thought they would have less wins, but I don't expect them to have anywhere near the type of game that they had last week, with Justin Tucker missing multiple kicks and them having a few turnovers. I expect Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry to get back on track and look for Lamar to go over 300 total yards again. Derrick Henry to get a couple touchdowns, and look for that Ravens defense to be a stalwart and stop that Chargers offense from ever getting anything going.
Love that you said NFL logic and mentioned that worst week equals best week, because NFL logic, it's the most broken thing ever. There's no doubt about it. But god damn, is it consistent. It is a true thing. It is the wildest thing. I mean, stuff like that, stuff like winning after you fire your head coach, stuff like winning after you change quarterbacks. It shouldn't work, but it always does without fail. So that was our NFL Week 12 prediction episode. Thank you all so much for watching and for keeping up the support through kind of our shaky week schedule-wise the last couple of weeks. But we are back on track now, and you should be getting consistent 2-episode a week weeks for the rest of the season here. So thank you all so much for watching this episode and following episodes. But until those, don't forget
to eat the W.